conditions continue to deteriorate for the people who are victims in this, and the efforts to do something about it don't seem to be anywhere in sight.
There were about 100 kids held in the facility before the storm, and during Hurricane Katrina, they evacuated the kids to Orleans Parish Prison, which is the adult detention center in New Orleans. And basically, Hurricane Katrina hit and OPP was flooded.
This area is the bottom of the bowl, so this entire area flooded immediately. And they were trapped in cells, locked in cells for days. There was, I think, 6 feet of water here, so unless you were 6 feet tall, you weren't getting out without going underwater. They were shackled and handcuffed and had to walk through the water. The littlest ones and the pregnant girls were floated on mattresses, and then they were walked over to the broad bridge, which is over here. They sat on the bridge for several days. They had no food, no water for days. Once they got on the bridge, if they did anything so much as sneeze, they were being threatened with mace, with shooting. They were told, we can shoot to kill, we'll kill you. Kids were talking about seeing guards beat people to the point where you could see the meat in their heads. They said one guy died. They didn't say anybody killed him, just somebody died up on the bridge and they just threw his body over into the water.
There was like a makeshift courtroom set up in Baton Rouge. A group of lawyers and organizers started getting together and trying to do something with these kids, get them out. Out of that, Juvenile Regional Services was born.
FEMA examined the Youth Study Center and actually deemed it more than 50% uninhabitable. However, it did reopen, and within just a few months after the storm, kids were moved back into the Youth Study Center, which just to all of us demonstrated where there was just failed priorities on the part of the city of New Orleans for our young people.
And the array of complaints against the center seems almost endless, everything from insect infestations to inadequate staffing.
There's been several suicide attempts in the facility.
Dana Kaplan with the Juvenile Youth Justice Center of Louisiana says they filed a lawsuit against Mayor Ray Nagin and several city officials. Today, they dropped off over 500 petitions and asked for a meeting to figure out an appropriate replacement facility.
Mayor Ray Nagin! Mayor Ray Nagin!
It's a pretty old facility. Some of the old cells, they look like what you would imagine in an Eastern European gulag. And so those have all been shut down. I'm operating right now in a temporary facility where the majority of my structure has actually been demolished, and we're now awaiting the construction of a new facility. We're still operating out of trailers.
Everything here was demolished. We have our stove that's still up and running.
We use this stove to do basically the food preparation for the kids.
The way the food is given to them, it's come out of a trailer and then it's distributed to them, and I question them about the sanitary of it. The recreation component of it, at one point, over 11-month period, he hadn't been outside at not one time.
Before we got into like the whole campaigning about that and sued YSC, they had like harsh living conditions. They wasn't trying to try to educate the students. They spent like 23 hours in their cell and only 1 hour is recreational time for them. And now like they're trying to clean it up. They have night school and morning school. So it's starting to change slowly but surely.
At the same time, the coalition building and organizing that came out of the campaign is probably what made the city ultimately want to settle with us.
We have a mandate now from the federal court that says what we were doing before was not working and not even at constitutional muster.
I think the big change, I guess I would say, is in the philosophy of the stakeholders in the court about detention as an issue. and that really getting our heads around all the children don't need to be detained, and it is really incumbent upon us to figure out which of those need to be detained, detain only those, and then work with the other children who can be safely maintained at home.
One more time. Is you crazy, deaf or blind? You don't see them folks in them boats, your kids without shoes, man, there's people dying. I'ma stand my ground.
Now let me say this, the thing that we are challenged to do is to keep this movement moving. There is power in unity, and there's power in number.
I lost my childhood. 10 and 15, I'm supposed to be playing ball and kicking and doing all other types of fun stuff and chasing girls and doing all this stuff, but yet I'm stuck in a 6x8 cell. It was a situation where I wound up getting into an argument with some young men on a church bus, and we got off the bus, they went grab sticks. I grabbed the bottle, I threw the bottle. Young man wound up losing his eye. So I wound up getting sentenced to 5 years. It affected me in so many ways. One, my view on the justice system to this day is still kind of distorted and a little shattered. During that time, it messed with me mentally to where the justice system wasn't out for me, they were against me. So that made it to where when I came home, like my mindset was already triggered to be against the system in any shape, form, or fashion. Like, whatever I had to do to be against the system, I was gonna do it.
It was a part of life. You get locked up, just like living like an outlaw. You come home and now you feel like you're more smarter than before, so you gonna run from it. Try not to get locked up again. It's like a chess game. When I came to Liberty Kitchen, they encourage us to not use drugs or have nothing to do with them and stuff, and just come to work, and they want you here, so it's like they my family.
We are directly across the street from the courthouse, so we get a lot of referrals from probation officers. We're friends with judges, we're friends with judges' staffs, so we get referrals through word of mouth. We are trying to do as best we can here to make sure that our young people feel like they are in an environment where they can learn, they can express themselves, they can take risks, they can fail, which will all lead to success. Every
morning we have a class called Life Skills, and they just help us get ready for the real world, let us know that it's not gonna be easy out here, and we need to do something so we can live an abundant life.
The research shows that African American kids don't offend any higher. They really don't offend for things any different than white kids do. And so how are white kids able to avoid coming to court, and what are the mechanisms used to keep them from entering that door? And it's really important, because the other piece of research says that if kids hit the system and penetrate, even penetration at the first level, there are so many negatives to that. So it behooves us to figure out how we can keep kids from ever coming into the court.
One of the reasons we've been able to manage having such this smaller population of 23 has been this host of reforms that has happened since the storm. The NEKC Foundation and JDAI and the Burns Institute coming into New Orleans and helping us develop alternatives to incarceration. We know now that those kinds of alternative programs they're cheaper, they have better outcomes, and they're more effective. So far, it's been one of the success stories in our local criminal justice system. We're trying to rebuild a new facility, but one of our constraints that we're working with is FEMA. They will only replace what we previously had.
We were at one time holding over 200 children in detention in Orleans Parish, and I believe if we had that capacity, we may very well do that again. I think that what we have seen in the work that we've done over the last couple of years is that we do not need a facility with that many beds.
Advocates for the kids say they just need something to do to stay out of trouble.
We have a long ways to go. The facility is still 100% African American, and we know that it's not only black kids committing crimes in the city of New Orleans. There's still excessive use of force, and we still don't have the continuum of community-based alternatives to incarceration and alternatives to detention. JJPL and our partners like Youth Empowerment Project and Families and Friends of Louisiana's Incarcerated Children, and now young adults striving for success, can really look at what we've accomplished in the last 5 years, but also be fully aware of how much more work we have to do to really change the future opportunities for young people in our city. And just that the long road ahead we have will be hard.